everybody, welcome back to part 3 of the Rossin record restoration project. So I've got quite a few things accomplished this week. First and foremost, I went ahead and removed the headset, the lower cup, the upper race, and then the crown race here on the fork. And just for couple reasons, I wanted to give those pieces, I want to get them cleaned up, and then I wanted to just do a deep, clean up the frame really well. I had some sticker residue from where somebody had put like an old cat eye on here and had tape and stuff on it, and just some scuffs on the sides of the frames there from leaning it up against things or whatever. But so anyway, yeah, I wanted to get all that cleaned up, got it all cleaned up, and then I just wanted to clock the especially the races on the upper crown race there, and then the crown race on the fork. I just wanted to move those in a little different position, so if they had some divots or pits in them, it would kind of offset that. So hopefully would improve that notching feel in the headset there. So anyway, yeah, I got those, got them pressed back in, and yeah, looks pretty good. Polished the frame up. One of the guys up at the shop had some Adams polishing compound and polish, so it's kind of hard to see, but I'll get some close-ups here probably once the bike's all complete, and maybe give it another touch-up polish, because it always tends to get greasy from reassembly. But yeah, looks really nice. It definitely has a few scrapes and scratches here and there. A little, it's got a few battle scars here and there, but nothing really major, no dents or anything, just a few scrapes and scratches. I did notice there's a little serial number stamped here on the non-drive side dropout that says B121. I researched a little, did on some Rossin forums and things like that, and nobody really, I don't know if there's really any rhyme or reason to any of that. But yeah, other than that, I'm gonna put the hub back together, the rear hub, and then we're gonna build the rear wheel. So I got a few new parts and things. I've got these new Challenge tires there. They look pretty slick. It's got just a skin wall tire, Paris-Roubaix tire. So it's 700 by 27. So hopefully these they'll fit in the frame. I think they will, but I guess we'll find out soon enough. I also got some this semi-chrome polish that I've used this in the past, and it works really well on polishing up these aluminum bits and things, makes them look like chrome. And then I got my spokes, the rear spokes, cut them down. They're, the left and right, just measured them up on the feel wood machine and cut just a little, just approximately 2 to 3 millimeters off each side. And I also got some Teflon tubing to route the cables under the, it's just a bare loop under the bottom bracket, the cable guides there. So rather than those cables rubbing right up against the metal, I'll thread these through, and the cables will actually run through this stuff instead. But yeah, other than, I got the rear hub polished up. It looks pretty slick. But yeah, let's get this, get the rear hub rebuilt, and then we'll just move along from there. So we got our super sweet Campanello record hub there, and I had got all our pieces cleaned up. Like I say, everything was in really good condition. So I got this kind of laid out here how it's going to go. This is our drive side with the extra spacer. So as far as on the non-drive side, we basically have our cone, a little washer with a key, and then our lock nut. One thing interesting I saw on this is it says camp, and it says 84. So I don't know. I'm kind of at this point guessing the bike maybe it could be 83, 84. I don't know if these wheels original to the bike. I kind of assume they are, but you know, I guess it could technically still be an 84 model. But anyway, so we got our components here all cleaned up. Got our 18 1/4-inch ball bearings, and I had a couple different choices of grease. I don't have any campy grease. I have some Feel Wood waterproof grease, and I have this Rock and Roll Super Web grease. I don't know, I really like them both. I'll probably just go with the Rock and Roll grease on everything because it looks real similar to the campy grease color wise and all that. So anyway, kind of what we want to do first is just I like to just put some grease here within the hub. You know, if you have a grease gun or whatever, you can use that. I just like to, you can do it a few different ways. You know, just squirt it in there and get it basically on the, where the bearing races are. Honestly, I don't think I had enough of the Feel Wood grease to do the whole hub there. Uh-oh, lost a bearing. A little bit more. That looks pretty good. A little more in there. A little bit here. So I went ahead and just left the dust caps in here just because I didn't want to take a chance on mangling them up. So it would definitely be easier to get this grease in here, or if you had a grease gun. I've got a Dualco grease gun I like to use sometimes that works really well. So from there you just, you know, we're going to put 9 per side, and that grease will basically hold these bearings in place there. Looks like 8. There's 9 on that side. And yeah, there's a little extra grease in there, so kind of hold them in place. Just do the same thing on the other side. Okay. From there we're just gonna, again, thread it as our drive side there. And just go ahead and thread our cone all the way in. I just threaded it hand tight just till I feel like contact the bearings there. And then typically this is going to be just a little bit of trial and error. It's got our keyed washer. There's a little keyway in the axle there, so it can really only, you can go on either which way, but it's going to serve the same purpose either which way. And we'll just thread that into place. Got our 2 14mm cone wrenches here. This is the part that is, it takes a little bit of trial and error. Feels just a little tight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on the non-drive side and just turn this just against the washer there. So that actually feels pretty good. There's no play in the hub. I'm just gonna lightly lock this into place now. And I'll probably come back to this and we will probably readjust it maybe once the wheel's built. But that feels pretty good there. It's definitely smooth. no kind of notchiness or anything. I could probably back that off just a touch. It's a little wee bit on the tight side, but yeah. So let's get our spokes gathered up and get this wheel assembled. So we got our spokes here, freshly cut spokes. So we've got our drive side, which are a little bit shorter, and then our non-drive side. I got our spoke nipples and some linseed oil, and I've got a little, I like using these like a little pick, or sometimes I'll make a little homemade tool, but just a nipple driver of some sort. Keep these separated. Usually just when I lay stuff out on the bench, I'll lay it in proximity of drive side, you know, drive side here, whatever. So just kind of, I can visually remember that as a reminder. So I had talked about lining the valve stem up with the logo, and then also the way the labels, you know, I'm not sure if that's, you know, I want this to where when you're looking at the bike from the drive side, you can read the Mavic G40 logo. So I'll put that looking at me there, and then so we're going to have our valve hole there on the opposite end. So as I'm looking at this, immediately to the first hole to the right, that's going to be our keyhole there on the rim, and then here on the hub. So we got our Campy logo. I'll just looking at it from the drive side, that spoke hole that lines up with it, I'll consider that 0. This is a 3 cross, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3 holes over. And you know, as we had, I don't know, I'm looking at this, and it's going to be slightly off, maybe from, because what I wanted to do was lace this in the same, like, I guess, use the same holes of the spokes going the same direction. So our key spoke in this case would have to be this one here. So this one's actually slightly off from where we were, but if I clock that hub to where this spoke would naturally sit, you know, look down at the valve hole, that's, I don't know, I may try this, let me try the next one down and see if that gets us a little more in the ballpark. I mean, you're not going to be able to, if you're actually building lacing a wheel from scratch, you could definitely get it more precise. We're kind of going with what we, you know, if I want to use the same hole so this thing doesn't look all nasty when we get it built up with extra notches. So I think this will be acceptable here. So if I you know, hold this in the notch where that thing was built initially, and then I look straight down where the valve stem hole is going to be about right here, I think that's going to kind of split the difference, so that should look pretty good. So that's a lot of guys, when they're building a wheel for the first time, they're just going to go ahead and put that in and do their spokes. I mean, I prefer just to drop the spokes in all together. So we get drive side, non-drive side. So we'll go ahead and do our non-drive side spokes here. So I can tell just by, I'm not even going to guesstimate. Normally I'll, you know, just figure out if I want to lace it symmetrical or asymmetrical. This one we're doing a symmetrical lacing pattern just because that's what how it was built before. So I can see which holes had the elbows in and which ones had the elbows out. So we'll get these put in here on the non-drive side. This side's a little, you kind of have to flex the spokes in just because this flange kind of has an upward angle to it. So I'm just trying the best we can here not to scratch the hub up too much. So I sped up the video on through most of the wheel building process here, just to keep this video from going too long. But if you're interested in learning more information on wheel building or repair, spoke replacement, things like that, I've got a link at the very end of the video to my playlist that goes into this topic way more in detail, gives you more in-depth videos of how to do each of these processes, like lacing this wheel as I'm doing now, which is actually I'm doing it incorrectly because I just kind of took it for granted that the wheel was built correctly in the first place, and so I'm just dropping the spokes in the existing holes where they were before. Come to find out it was wrong, so we'll get more into that in just a bit. And I'll also have some cards up on the top of the screen detailing more of the videos as they come up. Alright, so what we're going to do now, let's go back and identify where that key spoke was, which I believe it's this one right here. Yeah, that's it. So we look at the spokes that cross the key spoke. We got 1, 2. Those 2 will go back behind. And then this is our third one. It's going to go up, cross it over, and we got that little cross section. And so there's our valve stem hole right there in the center. Oh, we lost one of them. So put that one through the keyhole spoke, and then one thing I'll normally do is I'll put my my spoke nipples in some linseed oil just to get them started, just to get them lubricated. And it kind of acts like a Loctite there at the end once they're set, but it acts like a oil basically as you're tensioning and truing the wheel. But we'll put that in, we'll put it in there at the end. So we got, put this one in that fell out on us. All right, so basically just look straight across the hub and you can see the 2 spokes on the other side are going to follow behind these 2. So they're going to go in these 2, you got these 2 holes, they're going to go in the 2 opposing holes. So you just got to look at the 2 holes that are slightly behind these 2, which would be this, or still kind of trying to wrap my head around what was going on here. But so the wheel was built really 3 different ways incorrectly. I didn't think that was possible, but so you know, if we kind of look at this group of 2 spokes, this one is just slightly, you know, it's basically not quite parallel to this group, and these holes are not quite parallel. Somebody had ran the spokes one hole off in the wrong direction. That's the only way I can see that how this was laced, the way the witness marks are in the hubs there. So basically I kept them the same on the non-drive side, but then the drive side they're basically not, I mean, it's laced how I would typically lace a wheel, asymmetrical style, I guess. But it's, yeah, I have no idea how this, I don't know. Yeah, anyway, we're just gonna move on here. So yeah, this is basically the way I will typically oh, and on top of that, I've got this bag of spoke nipples that I've had for a while. These are just alloy nipples, but I've already found 3 of them that are 15 gauge and not 14 gauge. So
I think it was Carol Baskin.
Yeah, this has been fun so far. I'm checking them. But yeah, anyway, we're just gonna go through, and you know, I basically, this is kind of the way I like to do it. Just advance the next spokes over. All right, so we'll check back in once we have this thing all the way built up here. So this lacing method, this is, I would consider more the method you'll see most production wheel builders use that are having to get wheels built pretty quickly. So I don't know, to me this is the fastest way I know, and this is typically how I'll build wheels at work. I'll got a card up here above that goes into a little more detail as far as this method, as far as calculating spoke length and how I lace the wheel and everything. Doesn't really go too much into tensioning and truing, but I think I've got another video planned here coming up soon that's gonna have that in aspect in the wheel. But yeah, anyway, that's just the reason I typically do them quickly is, you know, I don't have the luxury at work of just taking my time and, you know, drinking coffee and doing a nice slow wheel build. I have to get it done really quick, and you know, I've got tons of other repairs in line that I have to get done typically in a day. So this is definitely the fastest way that I've found to do it. So I'm getting the wheel put together correctly this time around, and yeah, just go from there. Alright, so we got her all laced up here, and just going to tighten these nipples down toward the end, just is even with the threads on the spokes there, and hopefully that'll get us in a decent starting position there. At this point, I'm just going around the wheel and evenly tightening the spoke nipples there to where initially what I'll do is I'll tighten to where just the edge of the spoke nipple basically contacts or goes to the very end of where the threaded section is. So otherwise you turn it until you see the threads disappear, and so if you do each one that same amount, then you're going to have the nipples approximately threaded in exactly the same at that point. You know, and if you keep tightening them, you know, a turn from there, that you're going to get you're going to be adding tension, but that's not going to guarantee you that you're going to get a straight wheel. But anyway, back to what I'm doing here. Now at this point, I'm just adding, you know, I've got them all at that point. The spokes were still just a little bit slack, so ideally, as far as the way this nipple driver, just the shape of it, it's basically like a screwdriver with a little nub in the middle that kind of keeps it onto the spoke nipple there. But ideally what I like to find is if the spoke is the correct length, just as you're starting to get a little bit of tension, a little bit of, or basically all the slack is removed. So it's just kind of like a big bolt that you, as you tighten it down, as you're tightening against something right at the point where that nut just hits the surface. That's basically kind of what we want the tool to, basically the edge of the spoke kind of pushes that little nub out so you can't turn it anymore. And if you get all the spokes at that same point, then that's even going to guarantee a little further that you're all pretty even. And then from there, just kind of I'm in the process of now actually kind of starting to true the wheel a little bit. So I'm just any run out radially or laterally, I'm basically just picking away at that by, you know, getting to the point where the rim rubs the calipers. So just keep picking away at it like that until it's pretty round. Once you get kind of towards the end of your starting to get pretty true and you're getting good tension, I'll check the spoke tension here with a tensiometer and make sure they're all on the drive side, or whichever side of the spokes has the most tension. I'll check the tension on that and make sure, you know, that we're pretty even. If there's spokes that are a lot lighter or heavier, I'll kind of equalize those and kind of incorporate that into the truing process. As far as, you know, if you find a basic spot of maybe a group of 4 spokes where the rim needs to come one way or the other, or up or down, I'll basically measure the tension on those groups of spokes and tighten or loosen, accordingly to try to keep the tension as even as possible. So at this point on this particular wheel, we're going pretty good on it. It's getting pretty close to pretty even, and we've got it trueness wise. It's definitely, there was one little spot on it where the seam on the rim was, but other than that, it came out pretty good. So that spoke link, I think, ended up being pretty much perfect. It's just sitting at the top of the nipple there, so I think I cut just about enough off, calculated the length's perfect. Alright, so I'm feeling pretty good about it, the wheel. Tension's all pretty good, pretty even. Differentiates a little bit on where the seam is. This spoke's a little tighter than these two. That's probably the biggest variance, but I'd say they're definitely between 2 and 5% tension wise on the drive side. So for an old rim, that's pretty, I feel like that's pretty good. So yeah, that's going to do it for part 3. Hopefully you enjoyed this video, and stay tuned for part 4. Start getting the rest of this bike together, and we'll see you guys next time.